Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the future of the Star Wars franchise seems to be quite expansive, not just with their books, novels, comics, and video games, but also, let's not forget about their new Star Wars trilogy of films, as well as their new Star Wars universe in general by Disney and Lucasfilm that's really going to define how Star Wars is really going to evolve by George, John, and Dave Filoni. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one thing about Disney Star Wars is that, yes, we do know that they are currently trying their absolute best to escape this phase of desperation and damage control to really get the ball rolling again when it comes to Star Wars. And this is really all going to start with The Mandalorian Season 2. Season 2 of The Mandalorian, by the way, is going to mark the very beginning of this new take on Star Wars, this new Star Wars universe, if you will, that's going to introduce a host of new characters and a brand new take on exactly how the universe is going to be handled by Lucasfilm. Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that Kathleen Kennedy has little to no creative power over these new Star Wars projects. She is currently only in control of the Leslie Headland Star Wars TV show, which is still due for release sometime in 2022. Now, beyond all of this, one thing that a lot of fans have been very curious about is exactly what Kathleen Kennedy is currently doing as we speak besides the Leslie Headland Star Wars TV show, and that, of course, is, well, little to nothing at all. I mean, she really isn't all that much involved with the roadmap of Star Wars. We do know that George Lucas, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni are essentially crafting what the roadmap of future films and TV shows are going to look like, and we're going to get a nice little insight look into that in, of course, late 2020 into early 2021. So looking forward to that as well. However, what is really surprising all has to do with Kathleen Kennedy's input on Disney, Star Wars, etc. Now that both Disney and Lucasfilm are primarily focused on their new Star Wars universe, they are developing multiple plans in order to reunite the Star Wars fans around the world in order to create a better and brighter future for the Star Wars fandom. Now, it's explained that George Lucas has been working closely with, of course, Favreau and Filoni in order to evolve the franchise into something new for the fans to enjoy. As of right now, Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy has only been working on one Star Wars project for Disney+, and that is the Leslie Headland Star Wars TV series. It's explained that as of right now, Kathleen Kennedy is working closely with Leslie to create new Star Wars fans that will accept her agenda in the Star Wars universe. However, in a recent interview, Kathleen Kennedy at one point in time unveiled her true intentions with Disney Star Wars and what Disney was on the path to doing in the long run. It's explained that Kathleen Kennedy went on to reveal that Disney as a company wanted nothing to do with the Skywalkers in the sequel trilogy movies in the beginning, and that they eventually wanted to make Luke Skywalker into a character that would be very minor in the Star Wars franchise. Kathleen Kennedy went on to state that Disney wanted to play everything safe with the character of Rey, which is why there were little to no hints of her origin in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Kennedy went on to unveil that the truth that they were actually very confused as to what to do with the character of Rey in the Star Wars franchise, as they were being very careful with how the sequel trilogy would end for the fans to witness. So once again, this is essentially Kennedy confirming that Disney and herself, as the president of all things Star Wars, did not know exactly what they were doing with Star Wars in general. And it really comes at no surprise, because when you go ahead and take a look at these Star Wars films, for obvious reasons, Disney did not know what in the world they were doing because, well, if you look at The Force Awakens, it really borrowed many aspects from A New Hope. Then with The Last Jedi, they had to figure out, how do we make something so different to the point where fans are going to accept this, but at the same exact time, it's going to be something very much different than ever before, and it actually turned out to be the worst Star Wars film in Star Wars history to a lot of fans out there. I myself am one of them who believes that it is, yes, indeed, worse than The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I am one of those. Now, when we look at everything related to Kathleen Kennedy beyond all of this, alright, what is really, surprising as well is the fact that when you think about Kathleen Kennedy, she really always pushed this narrative of how things were going to be done and how she wanted to exclude George Lucas's concepts and ideas from the Star Wars films, and it just wasn't right. It didn't feel right in the long run, and it's what really took a toll on how the Star Wars films were being done by Disney and Lucasfilm. Moving on. So on top of this, Kathleen Kennedy, of course, continued to reveal that the sequel trilogy was fully intended to eventually kill off the Skywalkers in a literal sense, so that they could pass on the torch over to Rey as a character, being the new Skywalker, and that this was her original idea, that she pressured upon J.J. Abrams to do so in the Star Wars sequels and Episode 9. Now, Kathleen Kennedy reveals that the introduction of Palpatine was also a very tough process, as they went through many different versions of Palpatine before he hit the big screen for Episode 9, and they made it intentional to hide as to why he came back to life or survived the events of Episode 6. Kennedy reveals that this was all done on purpose since Disney was having a hard time trying to figure out how to market that Palpatine survived the fall at the very end of Episode 6, and relied on the novelization to take care of all of this. Once again, confirming that they had a lot of issues with Palpatine's, portrayal in the movie. Now, Palpatine was a very big piece in Episode 9 because this was a very on and off character. They went through many different versions of Palpatine. We had the Dark Acolyte by Matt Smith. We had a different take on how Ian McDiarmid was going to portray Palpatine in the sequel trilogy, and so on and so forth. It was a snowball effect, and it really wasn't all for the best. We do know that Kathleen Kennedy obviously wanted to do this at last minute, and she did. She brought in Palpatine at the very last minute in order as to pretty much, fix Rian Johnson's mess of what he did with Snoke's death, and to figure out how do we bring back a villain that is not only superior, but is very much familiar with the fans that they are going to accept. What easier route to go with than throwing in Palpatine into the mix, and in the long run, not even explaining how he came back to life, which was the ultimate, I think, downfall of the movie, is how it left a lot of fans out there, casual fans, mind you, very confused. There's still a lot of fans out there that still don't even know how Palpatine came back to life, all because they wanted to take out some scenes that explained how he actually lived on. Now, with that being said, of course, Kennedy felt, of course, that this was a great decision to keep things mysterious, as it would have been very cartoonish in their minds to unveil Palpatine's death and survival in the film of the original ideas that they were going over. Kathleen Kennedy continued to state that she specifically convinced Bob Iger to withdraw George Lucas's ideas of Palpatine from Episode 9, since Lucas was going way too overboard with Palpatine using his lightsaber in the scenes for the fans to witness on the big screen, and that the production of the film had many issues since the creators were not agreeing with her ideas as well. So once again, guys, like I've said before in the past, this is at no surprise that when we go ahead and take a look at Kathleen Kennedy, I think it pretty much is, a blessing in disguise now that the sequel trilogy was done, because it makes us realize that if you have a leader like Kathleen Kennedy, you can't get the sequels done correctly. I think that all of this eventually led to Kathleen Kennedy leaving, all the other projects by Bob Chapek, and now we can finally get a nice, fresh take on Star Wars. And it's going to allow the fans to see, exactly what the new universe is going to look like in comparison to what I always like to call the Kathleen Kennedy era of Star Wars, which is a highly criticized era when it comes to the sequel trilogy movies, when it comes to Kathleen Kennedy's overall treatment of the Star Wars universe, and how she completely ignored the Star Wars fans, including the creator George Lucas himself. We've seen this happen year after year. Now, here's the very important piece, is that for obvious reasons, the Star Wars fans are still skeptical about the fans, or should I say about the future, and how the fans are going to react to this is going to be a very interesting piece, because they're still skeptical about whether or not George, John, and Dave are going to be able to handle the workload of really restructuring Star Wars after Kathleen Kennedy's mess, right? I'm very hopeful that they will. I think that they're going to do a good job, and I'm very excited to see exactly what they have to offer for the future. So with that being said, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.